If you were Mr. Poilievre, would you quit today?
I don't. That's an unfair question. I can't look into the heart of Mr. Poilievre. I respect him as a parliamentarian, as I do the other leaders of the other parties, and we'll continue. I'll continue to work with him and all parliamentarians, as will my colleagues, to advance the interests of Canadians.
Pierre Poilievre called you badly educated in economics, and he did.
Wow.
So I'd like to hear a little bit about...
Can I take back my previous answer? No, that's a joke.
Right after winning a big and historic victory, Mark Carney did something no one expected. He laughed for real, not like a typical politician. Then he quickly took control of the room again. When someone asked him about Pierre Poilievre, he started answering, but changed his words halfway through. Instead of getting stuck, he turned the moment into a strong and confident response. In just a few seconds, he showed how he plans to lead. What Carney walked into that room with was not celebration. He walked in with a mandate, a list of immediate problems, and the authority to address both without asking anyone's permission. A majority government removes every political excuse available to a leader. No minority arithmetic to manage, no coalition fragility to navigate, no opposition blocking legislation as cover for inaction. The wins and the failures from this point forward belong entirely to one government. Carney acknowledged that directly in his opening, not boasting about what the election result meant politically, but framing it as a weight. We accept their support with humility, determination, and a clear understanding of what this moment demands. That sentence is not campaign language. That is the language of someone who already knows what the first week looks like and is not particularly interested in savoring the preceding night. The Poilievre moment carried its own subtext. When a journalist noted that the Conservative leader had publicly called Carney badly educated in economics, the room went quiet for exactly 1 second, and then Carney deadpanned that he wanted to take back his previous diplomatic answer. The joke landed because everyone in the room understood the layers. This is a man who ran the Bank of Canada through the 2008 financial crisis without a government bailout, while most of the G7 was on life support. The same man who steered the Bank of England through the Brexit period without letting the system collapse. Being called economically uneducated by a politician who has never managed a central bank is a specific kind of criticism that carries its own punchline built in. Carney did not need to explain the joke, he just let it exist, smiled, and moved on. The substance that followed the humor was anything but light. Carney laid out the operating environment his government inherited. A world more divided and dangerous than it was a year ago. Global conflict driving fuel prices higher across every market supply chain disruptions, compressing household budgets, and an economic shock significant enough that the word recession had appeared in the room's questions before the first 15 minutes had passed. He did not dismiss question. He said his government thinks about recession risk constantly, that their entire economic response is designed with that scenario in mind, and that the approach involves balancing immediate relief with responsible fiscal management while building the structural foundations. Housing, community infrastructure, energy infrastructure, new port capacity that restore investor confidence both domestically and globally. The immediate announcement delivered at the press conference was specific and tangible. Canada's new government would temporarily suspend the federal fuel excise tax starting the following Monday through to Labor Day aviation fuels. Would receive the same suspension, the combined effect up to 10 cents per liter removed from gasoline, 4 cents per liter from diesel. Added to the earlier elimination of the consumer carbon tax, the government calculated that Canadians would see fuel prices reduced by up to 28 cents per liter in total. That is not a promise about next year's budget. That is money out of the pump price before the week is over. The reason the announcement was framed around the Iran conflict is important. Carney said it plainly. Because of the war involving Iran, fuel prices have increased sharply around the world, including inside Canada. That framing is deliberate. It draws a direct line between a geopolitical event Canada did not cause and a domestic economic pressure Canada is choosing to absorb through policy rather than pass entirely onto households. The government cannot control what happens in the Strait of Hormuz. It cannot control what global oil prices do when a major producing corridor shuts down. What it can control is how much of that external shock passes through to Canadians at the pump. The fuel excise suspension is the mechanism for exercising that control in real time, rather than waiting for the crisis to resolve itself. This is the governing philosophy Carney was signaling through the entire press conference, including the humorous moments, act quickly target, the specific pressure points, deliver relief where people actually feel it, not in a framework document, not in a multi-year plan to be reviewed by a committee at the pump next Monday. The unscripted moments reinforced rather than undermined that message because they demonstrated the composure required to make fast decisions without becoming reactive. A leader who can absorb a room full of unexpected questions, handle a joke about their opponent's resignation, deflect a personal insult with humor rather than indignation, and then immediately return full attention to recession risk and supply chain disruption. That leader is not performing calm. They have it as a default. The question about Poilievre's future was the sharpest test of that composure in the room. Carney's response after the humor was exactly calibrated. He expressed respect for Poilievre as a parliamentarian, said he would continue to work with him and all parliamentarians to advance Canadian interests and move to the next question. No victory gloating, no elaboration on what the election result meant for the Conservative Party. The political dimension was acknowledged, contained, and dismissed within 30 seconds. What remained was the economic briefing. That sequencing was not accidental. The majority itself creates a different operating reality than anything Carney's government has had since taking office. Legislation can move, budgets can pass. Policy commitments made during the campaign are now executable without the uncertainty of confidence votes or coalition management. The fuel tax suspension announced at the press conference is one illustration of what that operating reality enables. A decision made at the cabinet level, announced publicly, and implemented within a week's notice. The infrastructure investments Carney referenced, housing, ports, energy infrastructure, will follow the same pattern, not proposals requiring negotiation, decisions requiring execution. The recession question was the one that carried the most weight in the room, and Carney gave it the most direct treatment. An enormous shock is currently moving through the global economy driven by the conflict. His government's job is to assess the best approach, given both their core structural plan and what can be done in the short term. The fuel excise suspension is the short-term instrument. The housing and infrastructure investment is the medium-term foundation. Responsible fiscal management is the constraint that disciplines both. Those three elements, immediate relief, structural investment, fiscal discipline, are not in tension in the way political opponents often frame them. They are the same governing strategy operating across different time horizons simultaneously. The press conference ended the way it began, with Carney completely in control of the room's temperature, not through dominance, but through clarity. The questions kept coming, the tone kept shifting, the answers stayed consistent, building Canada strong, moving fast, getting results, and somewhere in the middle of all of it, a brief moment where a prime minister with a fresh majority and a global economic crisis landing on his desk chose to laugh at a question about his opponent, let the room enjoy it for exactly 5 seconds, and then went straight back to work.